Charlie Kirk dukes it out and spars with a pro-Kanye 2024 supporter. Guys, I think this is gonna be a fun one, a little bit interesting, a little different from the usual stuff we're seeing. You'll see that there are some disagreements they have and some areas of agreement as well. So I found it interesting, not your typical leftists getting smashed kind of video, but something different and fascinating nonetheless. So I enjoyed it, and I think you will too, and we're gonna get right into the video. But first, everybody, please make sure you like our video, share it around, and you guessed it, subscribe to the Resist the Mainstream YouTube channel. That way we can keep bringing you these great, thought-provoking videos. As always, I'm your host, Arian, and let's get into the show.
How do you feel about like the current state of the economy and this whole theory of like immaculate disinflation, if you're familiar with the term?
Say that again.
Immaculate disinflation?
Well, we're not living through that.
Okay,
but
yeah.
Yes.
And where's your proof that we aren't exactly?
Are you taught disinflation?
Yes.
That we actually we're not seeing a surge in prices?
No, disinflation means the inflation rate is decreasing over time.
Well, so there is some evidence to show that, for example, televisions, iPhones.
Specific products, that's not an illustration of all inflation though.
No, I was gonna agree with you that.
Okay.
But if you just go to a grocery store, eggs are far more expensive than they were 2 years ago. You don't have to overthink it. I mean, the college degree here at this university, what is it per year, guys?
30,000.
How much?
That's without.
They've been
10 in state, 30,000 out of state. Yeah, 10 years ago, I bet it was 18,000 out of state, right? So
yes, but they've been trying to raise the Cal State tuition for quite some time, even before inflation spiked to its current levels or previous levels about a year ago. They've just been delaying it for quite some time. So
yeah,
it's not exactly.
We're living through a decades-long inflation surge, and the best evidence you could see it either in the artificial boosting of profit-earning ratios. Go ahead.
Even during like Trump's administration, inflation was actually quite low, so that's not
No, it was low then, but
true.
It's not low right now.
Yes, but why was it low then, would you say?
Well, because we had economic growth, and we weren't borrowing $2 to $3 trillion a year.
We actually were. We were borrowing quite a bit of money.
We were borrowing about $1 trillion a year.
Still quite a bit.
So we're borrowing about triple that right now.
Yes.
Do you agree?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
got
I mean,
it.
I think that's how the math works.
All right, guys, unpopular opinion, but I'm gonna say it. Just sticking to the facts here because I believe in the truth, no matter how inconvenient. If you look at the total spending in both terms, Trump actually did spend more money than Biden overall, particularly near the end of his term when the COVID stuff came. So that's probably where that kind of disagreement with Charlie and the Kanye supporter came from.
Triple in the law of big numbers is a big deal. So borrowing $800 billion, not excusable. Borrowing $2.5 trillion, morally reprehensible.
Morally? Why exactly morally is there a distinction between 1 and 3 trillion? Very arbitrary.
Because everyone here is going to have to pay off that debt, and that dollar that you think is going to have value is decreasing by the day. Whether you're pro-choice or Democrat.
But inflation is something that's going to occur no matter what. Sorry.
Can I finish? Okay.
I apologize.
It's okay. Inflation is not a guaranteed human norm. That's not true, but I'll get to that in a second. Every single person here, it will be harder than ever for you to own a home. So inflation is immoral because you're going to enter into a housing market where everything costs 3 times as much in the housing market than it did a decade ago. You will not be able to afford a down payment, let alone even be able to build the capital necessary for other goods and services that you might want to build wealth. And you know who does benefit is your parents' generation and baby boomers, no offense, that do own their assets and you won't. And so, secondly, inflation is a choice. It's not built into the human experience.
The human experience, sure, but the economic system, especially a capitalist economic system, it definitely is. How would you try to achieve 0% inflation?
0% inflation?
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't want 0%.
So then it is built in.
Inflation...
And it is a necessary evil.
No, I said I wouldn't want it. Okay. Moderate inflation is good for money velocity and for growth.
Yes.
But you need to manage that versus the growth rate, right? So this goes back to Milton Friedman's idea of the Chicago monetarism. You can laugh all you want.
Friedman? Yeah, all right.
Okay. What's so funny about Milton Friedman? The fact he's the greatest economist of the 20th century, or
qualify? That's I don't know. I wouldn't say he's exactly that.
So you're more like a John Maynard Keynes guy. So yeah.
Not necessarily. Okay, no. I just take a more broad approach than
So
specifically
we
Milton
don't
Friedman.
need to have a central bank. We do have a central bank.
Okay. Bold claim. I'll follow you though. You
don't need to have a central bank.
I used to be very against the Federal Reserve as well.
Okay, I'm just saying you don't need to have one, but we choose to have one. The central bank has been overly politicized to try to stop, let's just say, natural economic cycles from occurring. Both administrations, Bush, Obama, Trump, Biden, have leaned on the central bank to use cheap money as a way to try to keep the good times flowing and the good times going.
Yeah. Okay, that's definitely for sure.
So we don't agree. Well, we don't disagree.
It's undoubtedly true that inflation has just been ravaging our American economy. It's getting bad, guys. I mean, I don't know about you, but I've had trouble saving recently. I mean, just go to the grocery store and end up just spending so much more money than you used to. Eat out, you dare to eat out, you go to McDonald's and you're paying like, I don't know, 15 bucks for like a burger and some fries. It's crazy. It's crazy. And that's exactly why I have decided to start investing in precious metals. Thankfully, I have my partners at Goldco to help me out with this. And I highly recommend you guys check it out, okay? If you have a 401k account or an IRA, you can literally roll your stuff over penalty and tax-free into whatever precious metals you see fit. And to top that off too, we have our experts at Goldco who are more than happy to help you out, answer questions and whatnot. So guys, just go ahead and please go to rtmgold.com, okay? You can either type in your web browser or click the link in the description. That way our experts can come and help you out. They can show you around, show you the ropes. You can even get a free kit, all right? Yes, a free kit on investing in precious metals, guys. So check it out, rtmgold.com. Either click the link in the description or go to the web browser.
Yeah, but here's the other thing I would say.
We can hear you.
I gotta say, your protesters are kind of weak here, guys. I
Aren't they?
expected more
Aren't
out of
they?
them, right?
They didn't seem to have the energy to get
I
all
know.
the
I
front.
thought they'd have more, Yeah, I like it. Please keep going. Yeah.
I will say though, going back to the mortgage rates, as you were saying, I would say that probably has a lot more to do with private equity buying up homes than the inflation rate.
Well, hold on. There's two parts to that. I'm not talking
Okay.
just about mortgage. Interest rates are up. I'm talking about just the asset price itself.
That too, I would say it's a lot more related to private equity buying up homes.
But why is private equity doing that? Because they have so much cheap money that we've put into the system, they don't know what to do with it. Now, I think we could agree, actually, there should be laws against BlackRock coming in and buying single-family homes
Amen.
and renting them back. You should not be a society of renters. It's bad for society.
Yes.
So we can agree on that. I say
yes,
that as a
for sure.
conservative. It's bad for the human experience
Good,
and for
yeah.
generational flourishing. But
So true. You know, there's this ridiculous free market orthodoxy that exists within Republican circles and also libertarian ones too, obviously, where they insist that, oh, well, let a private company do whatever they want. It's the free market after all. And you know, it's such a dumb and dishonest argument. No one actually believes that, okay? No one's gonna, for example, no one's gonna say, well, if a corporation tells you you have to pull your pants down and show your buttocks, well, you gotta do it because it's a private company. They can do whatever they want, right? No one's gonna say that. People argue, no, we should have some laws preventing that. Big tech is another great example where Republicans will get totally ridiculous on this issue because they'll say, well, let Facebook ban everyone off the face of the earth. It's a private company. They can do whatever they want. It's just so silly and so dumb. At the end of the day, if you live in a society, you have to have some kind of laws regulating human behavior. Otherwise, there's going to be no morality reflected in that society. It really is that simple, and people can argue all they want, but that's the obvious truth.
when you open up the guzzle of cheap money, which we have done, especially post-COVID, there's a price to that. And the price is that your currency gets weaker. Okay. And we're seeing that right now.
Yes. So would you say that it was actually necessary in order to get out of the huge recession we experienced during the pandemic
No, I think we should have just opened up the economy. We never should have locked down the country.
Okay.
So we never should have borrowed the $6 trillion. We never should have done the stimulus stuff. It hurt every single one of you. It increased suicide rates, depression, anxiety, fiscal problems, economic problems, political problems.
I could definitely agree with that.
I can agree with that too, and thank you, Charlie, for saying that. I can only speak for myself, but personally, I knew people in my own life who tragically decided to end their lives because COVID lockdowns, I'll say it the polite way. And, this happened too. I have family, I have friends of friends who've unfortunately decide to end their own lives, siblings, friends, things of that nature. It's really sad and tragic. And during that whole time, people were wagging their finger of moral shame. Oh no, well, if you're against the lockdown, you're killing old people. And it wasn't just the left, by the way. Obviously, Democrats were crazy and schizo about this, but many Republicans pathetically jumped on the bandwagon too. So-called conservatives, so-called pro-constitutionalists. Really disgusting stuff, honestly, and they ought to be ashamed of themselves. I just wanted to say that because it's something that people just like to ignore and, sweep it under the rug, memory hole, pretend like it didn't happen. But it did, and I remember it, and I'm sure many of you guys do too.
But would you say even in, say, 2009, lowering the interest rates to zero in that sense, was that
Well, we didn't
necessary?
go to zero. We didn't. We went down, believe it or not. We went to 5%. COVID, we went to near zero.
Yes.
But no, I have a contrarian view on 2008. I think we should have let the banks fail.
Ooh,
and
okay.
I think we should have. I think we actually should have allowed the market to solve it, not to have socialism for the rich and brutal capitalism for the working class.
I totally agree with that.
Okay, so
totally agree with
I
that.
think that Wells Fargo, Goldman, I think that Lehman and the big banks that failed should have had to actually
Okay.
Climb themselves out, or you destroyed a moral hazard.
Yeah.
Is what you did, and 0 executives went to prison. I agree with Elizabeth Warren on this. None of these robber barons that did what they did in 08 served federal prison time. Meanwhile, and I will use a political statement to contrast it, grandmas that went into the Capitol on January 6th and took selfie videos are in federal prison. You ask me who's a bigger threat to democracy? Wall Street executives that bankrupted our economy in 2008 are a bigger threat to our country than people that walked into the Capitol building and took a selfie.
Now, let me ask you this.
In addition to Charlie's point about how the big banks should be left to fail, what's interesting is we let smaller banks fail all the time and even force them to get swallowed by big banks. You want a recent example? JP Morgan and Chase, as if they weren't big enough already, just swallowed First Republic Bank, which was one of the largest independent smaller banks in America. How did this happen? Well, the federal government did a forced takeover of First Republic and then literally just sold them to JP Morgan. It's literally how it went down. So we won't let the big banks fail when they totally deserve to and should, we'll let them get bigger and more bloated when a smaller bank has a hard time. How does that make any sense?
Now, let me ask you this. I don't know if my memory served me correctly, but who was... did Steve Mnuchin serve under the Trump administration?
Yeah, he was from Government Sachs.
Did he serve under the Trump administration?
That's right, yeah.
So why would Trump invite someone like that who should probably be in federal prison into his administration?
I have a lot of personnel disagreements. I love Trump, but I think
you love Trump?
Love Trump.
Why would you love? Why would? So
do we love Trump, everybody?
So to ask a broader question, why would you love any politician? They have a job to do. Why be emotionally attached?
I have,
in that sense?
and I don't say this like lightly. I do have a friendship with him. I've gotten to know him over a couple of years.
Okay.
So
and disclosing bias.
100% biased. And so I also think whether you hate him or love him, he's a once in 100 year.
But why would you hate him or love him? He just has a job to do.
Well, I also love what he did as country. As president for the country. So
would you say though that you're probably more of a fiscal conservative?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, and probably his borrowing was one of the two. So 3 things, if you want to just be full disclosure, that I think President Trump could have done better, and I think he will do better. Fiscal deficit spending, okay?
Why do you think he will do better?
Let me get to all 3, okay?
Okay.
COVID and certain personnel choices, okay?
Okay.
Those are the 3 things. And I could list 100 accomplishments. Those are 3 things I think that the first administration, that wasn't their best.
Yeah.
Why it could have been better? I think that he's got the world against him, and if he becomes president again, which the 50-50 shot he will, he's going to set the world on fire.
I would say he's a little bit too egotistical and emotional to really counter the world being against him. He seems to react a little too emotionally to these kinds of things.
I don't want to get too deep into it, but you're not gonna convince me on negative Trump stuff. So
okay, interesting. So your mind isn't necessarily that open. Isn't this change my mind?
You could try.
Okay.
I mean, you're not gonna.
But didn't you just say kind of up front that
I'm open-minded to hear. I'm just saying you're not gonna change my mind on this stuff.
Okay. So then, what is it that's leading you to think that Trump is gonna have better decision making in this next term, specifically when it comes to borrowing? Because he is going to
assess. I mean, I don't know, and honestly, there's little evidence except the fact that we're going to have a debt crisis, the likes of which the country's never seen, and he's going to have to address it. We need to have severe cuts in the federal budget.
Okay, so would you say that the downgrading of America's credit rating is more related to our national debt or the inability to handle it in a mature way?
More both, but more just the debt itself is. I mean, we now owe more than we're worth as a country. So I want to get to other questions because you had some time. But final question, I want to be respectful. But
so I guess if you think that that's an issue that we have more debt than say our current income?
Well, we do.
Well, yeah, but if you would
just
say
the value of the country.
Of course, we control our own currency, and our currency is
are you a modern
number one
monetary
reserve
theory guy? So
it's the number one reserve. So that gives us a lot of wiggle room.
It's decreasing. It used to be 75% of the world's reserve currency status 20 years ago. Now it's 55%.
I would say.
Do you know about BRICS? You know BRICS, right? BRICS.
Yeah, I do.
BRICS is creating an alternative.
I think they're a
dollar.
paper tiger.
Okay. I actually hope you're right.
I don't believe that India, China, South Africa, and Russia could ever work together to create their own unified currency.
I just hope we're not too prideful.
Definitely a paper tiger.
Thank you.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the discussion. I know I did. Some disagreements, some agreements. It was interesting, a little different from usual. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We really hope you enjoyed the video. Please be sure to comment below. Let us know what you liked, what you want to see next, and we'll see you again very soon. Thanks, and God bless.